What if I told you that the most popular, most crowded spot on the lake is probably the absolute worst place to be fishing? Sounds crazy, right? We're taught to look for the signs, and a group of boats is a big one. But today, we're talking about why that community hole that everyone flocks to is often nothing more than a fish graveyard. I'm going to show you the subtle signs that prove it, so you can stop wasting your precious time on the water and start actually catching fish when nobody else is even looking. I promise by the end of this, you'll understand why you've been struggling in those can't-miss spots. So let me ask you this, and be honest, have you ever spent a whole day at a well-known hot spot and caught absolutely nothing? Let me know in the comments. For generations, the logic has been simple. Where there are fishermen, there are fish. We pass down information about legendary points, rock piles, and weed beds. We see a cluster of boats on our fish finder map, and we're drawn to it like moths to a flame. It's a deep-rooted habit. In the past, this might have worked, but today, with the internet, social media, and advanced electronics, information spreads instantly. A spot that was hot on Saturday is world famous by Tuesday. This creates intense, localized fishing pressure that the old-timers never had to deal with. We're still using an old playbook in a brand new game, and it's causing us to spend our days fishing for ghosts in these so-called hot spots. Let's start with the psychology of it all. You pull up to the lake, and you see it. A whole fleet of boats all clustered in one little bay. Your first instinct is to head right over there. It's human nature. We see a crowd and we assume something good is happening. It's social proof right there on the water. We think, they must be on 'em. They must know something I don't. It feels like a shortcut to success, a guaranteed bite. The fear of missing out kicks in hard. So you fire up the big motor and join the party, feeling confident that you've just put yourself in the right place at the right time. You've followed the map, you've followed the crowd, and you're ready to fill the boat. This is the classic starting point for a day that ends in total frustration. But at this moment, it feels like the smartest move possible. It's a powerful magnetic pull that is hard for any angler to resist. Now let's flip that coin and think about it from the fish's perspective. What does that crowd of 10, 15, even 20 boats actually mean for them? It means constant noise. The hum and whir of trolling motors are non-stop. The pinging from dozens of sonar units is like a constant, high-frequency headache. Heavy lures are splashing down every few seconds from every possible angle. Shadows from boats are constantly passing over their heads. For a fish, this isn't a peaceful feeding opportunity. It's a full-scale invasion. It's a chaotic, threatening environment. Their natural instinct isn't to eat. It's to either flee the area entirely or to hunker down so tight to cover that they become practically uncatchable. You're not presenting a meal, you're just another piece of the chaos. This is where we introduce the fish graveyard concept. It's a crucial idea to understand. A fish graveyard isn't necessarily a place with zero fish. In fact, your electronics might light up, showing what looks like a fish paradise. The name comes from the fact that the fish that are there are, for all practical purposes, dead to you as an angler. They fall into three categories. 1, they've already left the area to find peace and quiet. 2, they are so highly educated and wary from seeing hundreds of lures that they can identify your brand of crankbait from 20 feet away. 3, they are completely shut down, stressed, and hunkered on the bottom, refusing to bite anything. So, while you might be fishing over fish, you're not fishing for catchable fish. You're casting at ghosts. Let's talk about the first and most common resident of the fish graveyard, the educated fish. Picture a 5-pound largemouth bass living on a popular main lake point. On any given Saturday, that one fish might see 150 different lures pass by its face before noon. It's seen every color of plastic worm, every wobble of every crankbait, and every flutter of every spoon. That fish isn't just reacting on instinct anymore. It's a seasoned critic. It's been hooked before, or it's seen its buddies get hooked. It knows the difference between a real shad and an imitation. It can feel the vibration of your braided line. You're not trying to trick a dumb animal. You're trying to outsmart a survivor that has a PhD in lure rejection. Your secret bait is something it probably saw 6 times this morning. The next major factor is the sheer, overwhelming pressure. Let's really visualize this. Every single cast from every boat is a disturbance in the water. Every time a trolling motor is turned on or off, it sends vibrations through the entire area. Think about the sounds. Someone drops a pair of pliers on the boat floor, a tackle box lid slams shut, people are talking loudly. To fish, which detect vibrations through their lateral line, this is like trying to eat dinner in the middle of a construction zone. Their senses are on high alert for danger, not for food. In this hypersensitive state, they are far more likely to spook and bolt than they are to leisurely inspect your jig. They are not in feeding mode, they are in survival mode, and you cannot catch a fish that is only focused on survival. Here is a huge sign you're in a graveyard, the catch-report lag. This is a modern fishing problem. You read a report online, or a buddy tells you that a certain spot was on fire last weekend. The news spreads like wildfire. By the time you get your boat in the water the following weekend, you and 50 other anglers who saw the same report are all heading to the same spot. The problem is, the party is already over. The fish that were actively feeding there have either been caught or have moved on because of the initial pressure. You're showing up late, hoping to catch the last few stragglers from a bite that peaked 5 days ago. You're fishing a memory. The crowd isn't there because the bite is hot now. They're there because the bite was hot.
It's time we bust the myth of the magic spot. Many of us are guilty of this. We believe there's one specific rock pile, one magical laydown tree, or one perfect weed edge that will always hold all the fish. We learn about these spots and hammer them relentlessly year after year. But here's the truth. Fish move. They are not stationary objects. Their location is dictated by the season, the water temperature, the weather, the location of bait fish, and, most importantly, fishing pressure. That magic spot that your grandpa told you about might have been great 30 years ago, but it's been fished by thousands of anglers since. The fish have adapted. They might use that spot at night or for a brief period in the spring, but they don't live there anymore. Holding on to the idea of a permanent magic spot is a trap.
Let's consider the bait fish. It's a simple rule. Find the bait, find the fish. But what happens to bait fish in a heavily pressured area? They react the same way the predator fish do. They get nervous. The constant commotion, the rain of heavy lures, and the presence of so many boats and trolling motors spook the schools of shad, minnows, or bluegill. They don't stick around in a war zone. They scatter into smaller groups or move to quieter, less disturbed waters. And when the entire pantry packs up and leaves, the big diners, the bass, the walleye, the pike, are right behind them. So when you're casting into that community hole, you are often fishing in an area that has been abandoned by the entire food chain. You're fishing an empty refrigerator. Now let's talk about your expensive electronics. You idle over the famous spot, and your 12-inch screen lights up like a Christmas tree. You see arches and marks everywhere. You think, they're here, it's loaded. But then you spend the next 3 hours throwing everything in your tackle box without a single bite. What's going on? You're looking at sonar ghosts. These are fish that are physically present, but they are completely negative and inactive. They are sitting motionless on the bottom, recovering from stress or just waiting out the pressure. A fish that refuses to eat is no different from a rock on your screen. Marking fish is only half the battle. The real skill is finding fish that are willing to bite, and those are rarely the ones sitting under a fleet of boats. Here's a perfect real-world example from a trip I took last fall. I was on a very popular lake, known for one specific, long, tapering point. I got there mid-morning, and I counted at least 15 boats circling this one piece of structure. It was a traffic jam. I saw guys casting, electronics running, the whole 9 yards. I didn't see a single net go in the water. Instead of joining them, I idled a few hundred yards away into a boring-looking nondescript pocket. It had no special features, just a simple clay bank. But it was quiet. On my third cast with a simple Ned rig, I caught a nice 3-pounder. I ended up catching 5 more in that forgotten little cove. The fish hadn't left the area. They had just taken one small step away from the chaos to find refuge.
Another dead giveaway that you're in a fish graveyard is the ghost bite. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're slowly working your bait, and you feel a little tap. It's a tiny tick on the line, just enough to make you think it was a fish. But when you set the hook, there's nothing there. You get this over and over again. These aren't just fish short striking. These are highly educated, ultra-wary fish that are just mouthing the tail of your bait out of curiosity or reflex. They are too suspicious to actually eat it. They've been pricked by a hook before, and they've learned their lesson. A real, aggressive, unpressured fish doesn't tap the bait. It tries to kill it. Constant non-committal ghost bites are a clear signal that the fish in the area are too smart for their own good.
So, what's the solution? How do you break this frustrating cycle of following the crowd into a dead zone? It all starts with making a conscious and often difficult decision. You have to learn to ignore the crowd. I know it's one of the hardest things for an angler to do. To see a dozen boats piled up and to deliberately turn your boat and drive away from them feels completely wrong. It goes against every instinct. That fear of missing out screams in your head. But you have to trust that you are not missing the action. You are escaping the graveyard. The first step to finding your own fish is to stop trying to fish with everyone else. It's about developing confidence in your own ability to find fish, not just follow others. The next step is to start thinking like a fish that's under extreme pressure. Imagine you're that base. If your home on the main point has turned into a noisy, chaotic mess, where would you go to get away from it? You wouldn't swim 5 miles across the lake. You'd likely make the shortest possible move to the nearest quiet water. You'd tuck into a small, overlooked patch of weeds just inside a nearby cove. You'd slide under a single, isolated boat dock that nobody is fishing. You would find a small ditch or depression just off the main structure. The fish are often in these in-between spots, the places that don't look special on a map, and that everyone else drives right past on their way to the famous community hole. Let's debunk a classic fishing saying that can be terrible advice in this situation. Never leave fish to find fish. Normally that's solid wisdom, but when you are in a fish graveyard, it's the worst thing you can do. The fish you're on are uncatchable ghosts. Staying there and stubbornly trying to force a bite from a negative fish is a complete waste of time. In this specific case, you absolutely must leave those marked fish to find living, breathing, biting fish. Acknowledging that a spot is dead, even if your sonar says otherwise, and making a move is the mark of a smart angler. Sticking it out for hours with no bites is a recipe for a zero-catch day. It's better to spend an hour searching for an active school than to spend 5 hours casting at ghosts. This is where you need to use your map more than your eyes. Before you even launch the boat, or while you're idling out of the no-wake zone, Look at your lake map. Identify the obvious, well-known community spots. You know the ones. Now, instead of marking those as targets, mark them as avoidance zones. Then look for the secondary, less obvious structures nearby. If everyone is fishing the giant main lake point, you should be looking at the smaller secondary point that's just inside the mouth of the next cove over. If they're all on the big offshore rock pile, you should be checking the smaller, isolated boulders between that pile and the shoreline. The fish often just make one small, logical move away from the pressure. Your map will show you where that move leads. Okay, let's say you absolutely have to fish that community hole. Maybe it's for a tournament or you just have a feeling. The key then becomes timing. The intense fishing pressure is usually a 9 to 5 phenomenon, so you have to beat the clock, be the very first boat to arrive at that spot in the grey light of dawn, long before the fleet shows up. Fish it fast and hard, or do the opposite. Wait until the evening when most of the crowd has given up and gone home. Fish it during that last hour of daylight. By fishing the spot when the pressure is at its absolute lowest, you give the resident fish a chance to relax, forget the chaos of the day, and maybe, just maybe, start thinking about feeding again. You're getting a brief window of opportunity before the graveyard reclaims it. Your presentation also has to change dramatically in these high-pressure zones. Forget the big, loud, aggressive baits. The fish have seen them all, and those lures now act as a warning signal. In the graveyard, finesse is king. This means downsizing everything. Use smaller baits like a Ned rig or a drop shot. Switch to lighter, less visible fluorocarbon line. Slow your presentation way down. You're not trying to trigger an aggressive reaction strike from an active fish. You're trying to coax a bite from a wary, neutral, or negative fish. You have to make your bait look as natural and non-threatening as possible. But to be perfectly honest, it is almost always more effective and more fun to spend your time finding a different group of fish that will smash your favorite power fishing lure. Ultimately, this all boils down to a shift in mindset. The true sign of a great angler isn't the ability to pull one lucky fish out of a massive crowd. Anyone can get lucky. The true skill is the ability to consistently find and catch your own fish, away from everyone else. It's about developing a pattern based on the current conditions, not just following a GPS waypoint that's on every public chip. It's the confidence to look at a fleet of boats and say, well, nope, not for me, and then go find success on a piece of structure that nobody else has touched all day. That is what separates the consistently successful anglers from the ones who just follow the pack. It's about being a pioneer, not a follower. Finally, let's think about the health of the fishery. When we all relentlessly pound the same 1 or 2 spots on a lake, we're doing more than just educating the fish. We're putting immense stress on them. Catch and release is a fantastic conservation tool, but a fish that is caught and released 5 times in a single day is under an incredible amount of physiological stress. Its slime coat is damaged, it has expended huge amounts of energy, and its mouth can be torn up. We are literally loving these spots to death. By spreading out and finding new areas to fish, we not only improve our own success, but we also distribute the fishing pressure across the entire lake, which is healthier for the fish population in the long run. It's a win-win for both the angler and the fish. So the next time you're at the boat ramp, and you see that familiar parade of boats all making a beeline for that one famous spot, I want you to take a deep breath. Look at your map, and then deliberately turn your boat in the opposite direction. Head for that boring-looking shoreline. Check out that small, forgotten cove. Go explore that part of the lake you've never been to. I can almost guarantee you that you are not missing out on the action over there with the crowd. You are leaving the frustration behind. You are on your way to find the real action in a place where the fish are rested, uneducated, and ready to bite. You're not just fishing, you're hunting, and the hunt is always more rewarding away from the crowd. So, let's wrap this up. The crowded hotspot often isn't hot at all. It's a high-pressure fish graveyard filled to the brim with educated, spooked, and non-committal fish. You're casting at sonar ghosts while the real party is happening somewhere quiet. And here's the biggest twist, the real aha moment. The best fishing is almost never where everyone is. It's where nobody has thought to look yet. The secret to consistent success isn't finding a magic spot, it's mastering a strategy of avoidance. This simple shift in thinking from follow the crowd to avoid the crowd will completely transform how you approach a day on the water. You'll spend less time fighting for casting room and more time with a bent rod in your hand. Thank you so much for watching. If this opened your eyes and gave you a new perspective, do me a favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe for more tips that go against the grain. Now, I really want to hear from you. What's the most overrated, overfished community hole on your home lake? Drop its name or a description in the comments below, and let's talk about these fish graveyards.